So, in the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, today, inshallah, we have a very, very interesting program that I think you will really, really appreciate. We're going to talk about some very important issues. Today's discussion, if I can just move this over a little bit, today's discussion will be about something very important. What is the link between Ghazwat'ul Hind, number 2, Ghazwat'ul Sind, and the يخرجون من الخراسان رايات السود, and the black flags that will come out of Khurasan. So today's discussion will, without today's discussion, things won't be exactly clear. And I think there's a lot of misinformation at many different levels about Ghazwat'ul Hind. And so I want to clarify a lot of those issues. But there's a lot of other issues that are very technical and historical, which I'm not going to go into today. So, we're going to learn about 5 different things. Number 1, Khurasan and Ghazwat'ul Hind being used to manufacture conflict, being used as like a beehive, trying to create a situation where to get people together because people will see certain things and react to it. So being used to manufacture conflict and prepare a trap for Muslims. So this is the first thing I'm going to talk about. And you'll be quite surprised about the type of things the think tanks are doing and saying, like Robert Spencer, if you don't know about him. So the second thing we're going to talk about is Ghazwat'ul Hind. When does this happen? When does Ghazwat'ul Hind happen exactly? And then number 3, with that, many of the ahadith don't only mention Ghazwat'ul Hind only, but some of the narrations also mention Ghazwat'ul Sind, and Sind meaning the area of Pakistan. So how does this play into this? Who will send an army to Sind? And how will this happen? And then of course Khurasan. How does Khurasan fit into all of this? Who will send forces to Sind and why? That's number 5. Okay, so let us get it started, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Let's see if I can make this bigger. Okay. Ghazwat'ul Hind, is only India threatened by the idea, because India is threatened. Okay, and people are writing about this. Okay, and so just to give you an example, this is just a normal newspaper, but the Observer Research Foundation: if U.S. troops exit Kabul and the Taliban hold sway, and by the way, I figured out what Trump's plan is for making the armies leave. The armies going back will make American people happy, but he's going to replace it with private armies, mercenary armies, who charge the government 10 times more than the army does. So it's to make the rich people richer, the big companies bigger, and at the same time to make the people at home feel happier that he brought back the armies. So my previous analysis may not have been 100% correct about this. This guy Hussein Haqqani, who was an ambassador to Pakistan, is writing for the Hudson Institute about this same topic. The Hudson Institute: Prophecy and the Jihad in the Indian Subcontinent. Hussein Haqqani used to be an ambassador and is now writing for these think tanks that have agendas of their own. The Hudson Institute's senior fellow and director for South and Central Asia, Ambassador Hassan Haqqani, served as Pakistan's ambassador to the United States from 2008 to 2011. What is this guy doing writing for these institutes about topics which he really has no knowledge about? I mean, it's ridiculous. Let me move this here now. Ghazwat'ul Hind, a matter of faith. Jihad Watch. This is a website run by Robert Spencer, which is another think tank. Let me just which is another think tank. So Ghazwat'ul Hind, a matter of faith, Robert Spencer. Okay, so the point is, they have their eyes on these sayings of the Prophet, and they are beginning to think about how we can set traps. And then you also have amongst Muslims people like this guy. Pakistani Jihad war cry of Ghazwat'ul Hind is entirely based on concocted ahadith. No religious sanctity attached to terrorist designs into India. Now again, everything just, you don't like, just attach the word terrorist to it. I'm a terrorist, you're a terrorist, we're all terrorists, right? If we talk about certain verses of the Quran that relate to jihad, if we talk about anything that talks about Muslim self-determination, if we talk about khilafah, you are a terrorist. If you talk about Muslims standing on their own feet, having their own economy, you're a terrorist. Just, it's just a scapegoat for everything. We all understand that. Okay, now let us look at we won't look at this yet. The thing is that Imam Ibn Kathir, may Allah have mercy upon him, he actually, maybe this is a better place to talk about this. Imam Ibn Kathir mentioned an apology, which is he said basically, look, the history that he was writing, Nihaya wa Bidaya, right? He quotes this hadith and then he mentions Muhammad bin Qasim. But he also mentions that, due to lack of resources, I'm sorry, I don't have all the information. Okay? And so, Imam Ibn Kathir mentions an apology at a place for not covering these areas. Particularly, he covered almost nothing about Spain, and his information in some cases were wrong. And this is just, and so people are taking Imam Ibn Kathir's quotes in Bidaya wa Nihaya, or Nihaya as some people like to say it, and using that as a way to say, look, this jihad already happened. We don't need to create a crisis with India. Okay, so this is one thing that's going on. And so in that regard, what appears to be the case, I'm just reading this from here, from the apparent meaning of the hadith of Thawban radiallahu anhu, if it is sahih, and it is sahih, that the conquest of India referred to will occur at the end time, meaning not at the time of Muhammad bin Qasim or any of the other conquerors that came close to India before. And a time close to the descent of Isa alayhi salatu. Why? Because as soon as Ghazwat'ul Hind is finished, what will happen? As soon as Ghazwat'ul Hind is finished, the army will hear about the coming down of Isa alayhi salatu. So, and I'll quote that hadith when it comes. Not at a time that was close to Muawiyah radiallahu anhu. Okay? So, Muslims invaded India at the time of Muawiyah. They didn't really invade. They went towards Sind. Really, they didn't really they went into Sind. But that's another point. But I'm just trying to make the point that the hadith is very, very, very clear that these events the event of Ghazwat'ul Hind takes place close to, basically, it overlaps with the coming of Isa alayhi salatu wasalam. Okay? And so, the event of Khurasan happens before. The event of Khurasan happens before the coming of Isa alayhi salatu wasalam and before Ghazwat'ul Hind, which I will talk about in a little bit. So, what are we looking at? I just have an English translation of some of the narrations that I want to talk about. I will be going over the Arabic and the original text of all of these sayings of the Prophet ﷺ as time goes by, inshallah. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he records, in this ummah, the troops would be headed towards Sind and Hind. So there's a Ghazwa for Sind and a Ghazwa for Hind. Even though the word Ghazwa doesn't come for Sind. The word Ghazwa comes for Hind. Okay? This hadith is reproduced at least 19 subsequent works of Islamic scholars. So you have, everyone from Imam Bukhari mentioning this in his Tarikh, not in his Sahih. Okay? And the second hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh, definitely some of your troops will fight a war with Hind. Allah will grant success to those warriors, and as far as they would bring their kings by dragging them in chains, Allah would forgive those warriors whose Muslims would return, and they would find Isa alayhi salatu wasalam in Sham in Syria. Okay, this hadith reflected in two of the famous classical works. Okay, so I'm first giving this to you in English, and then Su'ban again records radiallahu an, the two famous traditions, and you should know this if you're interested in Islamic eschatology, particularly from the perspective of Islamic tradition and classical Islamic works. The two biggest narrators of these events of Ghazwat'ul Hind, particularly where the word Sind is also used, is Su'ban and Abu Hurairah. As you know, Abu Hurairah is he's repeated the most hadith, so he also has this in there. And Su'ban radiallahu anh has this hadith and another hadith that's very interesting on the same subject, which I'm not going to go into today. Two groups amongst my ummah community would be such whom Allah freed from fire. One group would attack India, and the other would be those that accompany Isa alayhi salatu wasalam. This hadith has been reproduced at least in two works of later Islamic scholars, okay, and this includes Imam Sayyuti and also Tarikhul Bukhari, okay. Then you have Ka'b radiallahu anh. This is a very interesting hadith. A king of Jerusalem. Now, who will be the king of Jerusalem? This will be the Mahdi, okay, would make warriors move onwards to Hindustan. The warriors would destroy the lands of Hind, would seize their treasures. Their king would use those treasures for the adornment of Jerusalem. Now, another narration says a king would send warriors to Hindustan and Sind. Both of these words are used. Now, there are different opinions. Some people say, some scholars have said, that Sind and Hind were used as one phenomenon, as one place. Other scholars said, no, Sind and Hind were actually two different entities that are being talked about. That's why some hadiths mention only Hind, and some mention Sind with Hind, just so that you're clear. So, the warriors would destroy the land of Hind, would seize its treasures. Their king would use those treasures for the adornment of Jerusalem. Meaning, somebody's already in charge of Jerusalem and it's a Muslim. Okay? That troop would bring the Indian kings in front of the king of Jerusalem, meaning the Mahdi. His warriors, by king's order, would conquer all areas between east and west, and would stay in Hindustan till the appearance of Dajjal. Okay? And so then from there, those armies will move towards Dajjal. Imam Bukhari's teacher, Naim bin Hamad, who wrote the famous Kitabul Fitan, he has recorded this hadith. The hadith related by Safwan, some of my people will fight Hindustan. Allah would grant them success. And so, why am I mentioning this? This is not just any random battle with India. Okay? This is going to be a battle right before the Mahdi will already be there. He will have sent this army to India. And as soon as that battle is done, Isa alayhi salatu wasalam would have been already present. So, some people of my ummah will fight with Hindustan. Allah will grant them success. Even if they find the Indian kings being trapped in fetters, they would do this. They would put them in fetters. Allah would forgive those warriors when they would move towards Syria and would find Isa alayhi salatu wasalam there. So these are the authentic narrations about the timing of when Ghazwat'ul Hind would happen. Okay? Now, in the Sasita, we have these ahadith. I'm not going to go over the Arabic right now, but this is just to show you, this point. A Sahih hadith by Muhaddithin is 5 narrations, and I'm showing you 5 different narrations in the original Arabic right over here on this issue of, because I think there's going to be a big movement to now there will be a movement to say, no, these hadiths are weak, and I already see this happening from different places, especially from the instructions are already there from the Western Institute, the think tanks, to do that. Okay, I don't know why this happened. Okay, so now, let's go to this. This hadith is in Tirmizi. تخرج من خراسان راية السود. The Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that from Khurasan black flags will come out. لا يردوها شيء حتى nothing will cause them to go back. حتى until تنصب الإلية, until they come to Elia, until they come to Jerusalem. Now there can be a difference of opinion on what is Elia also, but majority of the scholars say it's Jerusalem. These are all the traditions of the Prophet. Again, 5 traditions of the Prophet ﷺ regarding Khurasan. So how will it be? Khurasan is going to go to Jerusalem, okay? And from Jerusalem the armies will go to India, and from Jerusalem the armies will go to Sind. So keep this in mind. So the armies will start from Khurasan, join the Mahdi, and then when Mahdi will be in Jerusalem, Mahdi will see that they need to fortify and make strong the army of Sind, which is Pakistan. So the army of they will go to Sind, recapture the lands taken by India by that time, which I will talk about in a second, and then conquer India, China, all of this area, which I will talk about. And then by the time that they are, and while they're doing this, now in this process there will be the reconquering of Turkey also. So what will happen is the army will divide into 2 once Isa ﷺ comes. Isa ﷺ will remain in Jerusalem, and the army of Mahdi will go and conquer these lands in the east. Constantinople would have been reconquered by the Muslims as one of the first steps. So Mahdi will come, he will bring justice to Arabia, and then either he will go towards Constantinople, then from there he will go to Syria. While this, and then as he gets to Jerusalem and conquers Jerusalem, then he sends an army to Sind to refortify Pakistan, or this area of Khurasan. If Pakistan, one of the things that will happen, and I'll talk about this, but there will. So there are many traditions of the Prophet ﷺ talking about Khurasan. Yes, some of them are weak, but some of them are authentic too. So, Naim bin Hamad, on a chain of transmission on the authority of Zuhairi, says the black flags will come from the east, led by mighty men with long hair and beards. Their surnames are taken from the names of their homes, meaning their last names, their surnames will be like, if they're from Multan, Multani. This is very, their last names will be based upon a place that they live, okay? Now, Buraidah radiallahu anh says that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, there will be many armies after me. You must join the ones that come from the direction of Khurasan. Thoban radiallahu anh, again he narrates, if you see black flags coming from Khurasan, go to them immediately, even if you must crawl over ice, because indeed amongst them is the Khalifa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the Mahdi, depending upon, there's different narrations on that. And Thoban radiallahu anh, قال إذا رأيتم راية السود. Thoban radiallahu anh says, when you see the black flags, خرجت من قبل خراسان, that will come out from the direction of Khurasan, فأتوها, come to it, ولو حب, even if you have to crawl, فإن فيها خليفة الله المهدي, in it is the Khalifa of Allah, Mahdi. هذا, if you see here, هذا الحديث Sahih ala shart al-Shaykhain. This hadith is Sahih by the conditions of Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim. This hadith is that strong. Okay. If you see black banners coming from Khurasan, join that army, even if you have to crawl over ice. No power will be able to stop them, and they will finally reach Baytul Maqdis, where they will erect their flags. Now, how will armies come from Khurasan? What will be the situation of Iran? I'm going to say it very quickly, but describe it in more detail later, somewhere else. There will be a war with Iran. Because of that, Iran will be in a difficult situation. There will be a war with Pakistan and India, and many of the areas of Pakistan would probably be taken by India. The whole Muslim world will be pushed towards this area of Khurasan. The Pakistani military and Afghanistan, the Taliban that are beginning to now take over again, so they will be kind of like in an alliance. And then, because the situation will be dire, Iran down, Pakistan in a difficult situation, so that dire situation will create this new movement that will come out from it. Over here I want to point out Ni'matullah Shah, one of the dreams that he had, which is what I'm pointing towards. Because why will the Mahdi send an army to Sind? Meaning, this is like in the balance, you could say. He may send the army to this Sind to fortify his army through the army of Pakistan, or to reconquer the lands that were taken by India. What will be the history? Allah knows. But it's in the balance. It depends upon the attitude of the Muslims of Pakistan, the Muslims of India, the Muslims of that region. How they behave will depend upon what the situation will be. Right? So Ni'matullah Shah says Pakistan will lose Punjab, Kashmir, and some parts of KPK. So if that happens, if his dream comes true, and 80% of his writings have already come true, Ni'matullah Shah, if you study him. But we don't rely on this dreams 100%, but you know, since 80% of his dreams have come true, and since the hadiths also support the fact that Mahdi will send an army to Sind, which I will talk about in more detail. So it is possible that Pakistan may have lost some traction against India. But if that happens, I want people to know, don't lose heart. Because that's not Ghazwat'ul Hind yet. Okay? So now let's look at some of the other narrations of the Prophet ﷺ in the Sahasitta, in the 6 books of authentic hadith. There are 2 groups of my ummah whom Allah will free from fire. We talked about this. The one I want to talk about is the one named bin Hamad, the teacher of Imam Bukhari, quotes, in this ummah the troops would be headed towards Sind and Hind. And another hadith, which I quoted in my other videos, these armies will go from Jerusalem to Sind and from Jerusalem to Hind. And this is why in the other Sahih hadith you'll find the king of, like over here you find that a group of you will conquer India. Allah will open for you India, and they will come with its king chained. Allah will forgive those warriors, and when they return, Isa ﷺ will be there. Now we know Mahdi will be there before Isa ﷺ. The next hadith, a king of Jerusalem, in Baytul Maqdis, would make warriors move towards Hindustan, and another narration towards Sind and Hind. So this is what I'm referring to. The warriors will destroy the lands of Hind, would seize its treasures, and the king would use those treasures for the door of Jerusalem. In another narration, for decorating the Jerusalem. His warriors, and that's kind of like obvious because by that time, after the Malhama and everything that would happen, there would be a need for rebuilding these cities that had been destroyed by people that were occupying these lands. So here are some of the other narrations that have to do with the same issue. So I'm just going to move on right now. In this ummah, the troops, okay, the troops would be headed towards Sind and Hind. This is what the Prophet ﷺ said. My ummah, the troops would head towards Sind and Hind again. The land of Sind. Now, what is the land of Sind? What is the definition of the land of Sind? So I want to deal with that just very quickly. I'm not going to read the Arabic. I'm just going to read the English. The Arabic is there for you to see. Okay. The land of Sind is the land which is surrounded by river Indus. So you have the Indus River in Pakistan. Okay. So that whole area, the area before Indus is Khurasan. Behind the mountains of Iran and before the river of Sind, Indus, before the river of Indus, this is Khurasan. And after the Indus River and what comes of it up till India, this is Sind. This area was known as Sind. The land of Sind is the land which is surrounded by river Indus, which was formerly known as Sind. This river originates in the heights of Sind and its mountains from the region of Kashmir, and merges in the Sea of Sind in the Indian Ocean. So it's actually not just the province of Pakistan, Sind, it's that whole area. Okay? And you know the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, لا يخرب السند إلا بالهند. لا يخرب السند إلا بالهند. Sind won't be destroyed except by Hind. ولا يخرب الهند إلا بالسين. And India won't be destroyed except by China. So these events are going to take place. Okay? Now Ghazwat'ul Hind, people say Ghazwa is that place or that battle in which the Prophet takes himself. And so why do these hadiths, they use the word Ghazwa? This is obviously wrong. They're not authentic. I wanted to bring out an Arabic dictionary. Okay? Yes, Ghazwa is generally in Islamic tradition a battle in which the Prophet ﷺ participated in. But as a linguist, meaning the word Ghazwa was there before the Prophet, right? The word Ghazwa was there before the Prophet, but then it became used in a specific way. I'll give you another example in the hadith literature. For example, the word Salah. The word Salah meant dua. And in the hadith literature, the word Salah is used as dua because that's what the language meant. When Islam came, it changed that word to mean a specific type of dua, which is Fatiha and reading Salah. But Salah means dua. In the same way, Ghazwa, if you hear, if you read where it says, signifies, it is applied to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but I also want to show you here. It is a battle engagement where you go one time with full strike. Ghazwa is a big battle, okay, where you go with one time and one time with full strength. So let me just see if I can find that here. Signify this originally act of warring, plundering, expedition. But the specific meaning that I wanted to show was where it is a one-time strong war. Maybe I'll show that to you at another time, but that meaning does exist in the language. All right, so let us move on, and I'll show that at another time. Yeah, okay. So now, I heard Imam Baqir, so this person from the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Imam Baqir rahmatullahi alayhi, and the Sunnis don't deny the Imams, the people of the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We respect them. We just don't single them out as the only important ones. The family, if somebody's from the family of the Prophet, we have absolutely no problem as Sunnis to respect them and to honor them as members of the Prophet ﷺ's family. I heard Imam Baqir saying that a time will come when from the progeny of the Prophet ﷺ, he will have a sword and he will unsheath his sword, and Allah will conquer Rome, China, Turkestan, this whole, Constantinople will be conquered, Daylam, Sind, Hind, Kabul, Sham, and Khazar. This whole area will be conquered by the Mahdi, even according to the Shia sources. So now, what will, Iran's going to be an interesting case when we study that, okay? Because the question is what happens with Iran and what happens with the Shias in Iran in the long term. So, yeah, so I just want to, so what did we study? Okay, we studied number one, the destiny of Pakistan is in the balance. If Pakistan does good, then the army is going to Sind. Doesn't mean that they have to reconquer Sind, even though the hadith is there that are pointing towards the fact that an army would go towards Sind and recapture the Muslim lands. But if Sind is taken over, a certain part of Pakistan is taken over by India, then that forces a stronger alliance between Afghanistan, Iran, and Pakistan. And the armies would come out from there to help the Mahdi when he will be in Arabia, when Arabia would fall. And then so this is very important. And the other thing is, this is going to happen, these events are going to happen very, very close to the time of the coming of Isa alayhi salatu wasalam. They're not going to be any war that happens today or tomorrow. even though there may be wars between Pakistan and India now that may have positive or negative results, but there will be a war at the end, and so they will go from Khurasan to Elia, to Jerusalem, and from Jerusalem he will send the armies towards Hind, and according to another narration, Hind and Sind. Okay, so this is the framework I want you to keep in mind. Now, we have to keep our research going, our mind open, our thoughts clear. Don't get emotionally attached to one idea or the other, because nothing goes as humans plan. Nothing goes as humans think. Always Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in charge of everything ultimately, right? What we are interested is ultimately in two things. Number one, these are signs of the Day of Judgment. So the first thing is our own salvation for the Day of Judgment. And the second is to see a second renaissance, a second rise of the Ummah, where Islam becomes an example to the world of what is justice really like, because whole humanity will be suffering in these times to come, in these times of manufactured wars. So, and we look forward to these things so that we can know what to do to save ourselves, which is another subject in itself. So I'll end with this. Jazakumullah khairan. Please like and subscribe and share. Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Make sure to subscribe today, and make sure you like, and make sure you leave your comments and ideas. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله